Hello, everybody. It's Evan Grant from the Dallas Morning News, sportsdaydfw.com. I am here in Toronto on the eve of the 2022 Texas Rangers season. My desk appears to be a little bit shaky. Another one of the issues that I'm running into in this high-tech production of the Rangers Report, Rangers Ramblings, whatever we're calling it. I am here in Toronto, but just barely. Perhaps you saw the photo of me that I posted on Twitter this morning when I was leaving DFW at 7 a.m. with my little mask on the plane, about to embark on season 26 of covering the Rangers beat. I don't know that I looked all that excited. Early mornings don't really do well with me. But the day got worse from there. Getting into Canada was a breeze. Getting into the ballpark, watching the Rangers' first workout before the season was a breeze. Talking to Chris Woodward, John Daniels, John Gray, no problems whatsoever. Getting to the hotel, not a problem. Was about to check in at the hotel. Reached back to my back pocket just to make sure that my passport was still there, and it was not. Yes, I lost the passport in a lift on the way from the Rogers Center to the hotel. And here's the thing. I got it back. Somehow I got in touch with the driver somehow. He brought it back to me. I don't know what the proper tip amount is, particularly internationally, for somebody returning a vital piece of your security. But I tried to reimburse him fairly and with many effusive thanks. And I got to tell you, it brought me back a lot of memories that over 26 years on this beat, I have lost a wallet in a cab in San Juan, Puerto Rico, before Alex Rodriguez's debut as a Ranger. Should have known that was a bad sign. I have left a cell phone in the back seat of a cab in New York City. I want to say that was during the 2010 ALCS. Somehow lost an iPad in a cab in Seattle when getting out of the cab, which was picked up by apparently a homeless person and taken to Pioneer Square. And today I lost a passport. And I got them all back! Every time, somehow I got them back. Somehow the cab driver brought back my wallet. We were able to reach out to the cabbie in whose car I left the phone. The amazing thing about the iPad was Find My iPhone. I tracked down the homeless person who was lying in a planter in Pioneer Square. I kind of nudged him a little bit and asked him if he had found an iPad. He kind of grumbled something that I couldn't quite understand, and I said, look, I would love my iPad back. My phone says that it's here. I'd be happy to give you some money if you can produce it. And it took him no time whatsoever to reach into his bag and produce the iPad. So, and today, somehow, some miracle, I was able to track down my Lyft driver. So this all just goes to tell you, number one, I'm incredibly absent-minded. And number two, I've been incredibly fortunate. So thank God for that. Hopefully no more issues with the passport. And hopefully when this series is over, I will get back into the United States for the home opener. But before we get to that, a couple of things about this season that I want to address with you. There were some roster moves at the very end of the roster on Thursday to just kind of get things situated. Jose Leclerc was placed on the 60-day DL, which I don't think anybody saw as a surprise. Yanni Hernandez was dealt to Arizona for a minor leaguer who's not on the 40-man roster, which, again, not a surprise that the Rangers removed him from the 40-man, and Sherten Apostel was designated for assignment. To me, a little bit surprising, only because Apostel has what I would say a legitimate tool, his power and some plate discipline, but he's been hurt, and I think the Rangers are betting that he won't get claimed. And if he doesn't, he will probably go back to being the first baseman at AAA Round Rock. If not, it certainly opens up every day at bats for Matt Carpenter down there. So that was the minor news of the day. The thing I want to talk about here as we lead off the season, foreshadowing, is the leadoff spot. Actually, the first two spots in the batting order, which will, at least half of the time going into the season, be occupied by Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. Against right-handers, Brad Miller is going to go into the season hitting in the leadoff spot. But against lefties, you'll go with the right-hander Seager. The right-hander Semien and the left-hander Seager in the 1 and 2 spots. And here's what's important. The 1 and 2 spots last year for the Rangers were rancid. There's no other way to describe it. It was the worst combination of the leadoff and number 2 spots, which should be incredibly productive in this day and age in all of baseball. The Rangers got 100 and let me take that back. The 1-2 spots hit a combined 241. Reached base, 298 OBP. Slugging percentage of 337 and an OPS of 635. All of those, each individual component of the slash line was the worst in baseball for the 1-2 spots. They got 18 home runs from the leadoff and second spot, also the worst in baseball. They got 177 runs in the first 3 innings because of this, also the worst in baseball. So the offense never got started. Because it never got started, it was constantly playing from behind, and you see how all of this kind of spiraled into the offensive dysfunction that was 2021. Well, when you invest $500 million, $510 million if you want to include Brad Miller, who will be the other leadoff guy, you should be able to solve some issues. And it looks like the Rangers will be better in the 1 and 2 spots than they were last year. And if they're better in the 1 and 2 spots, particularly in getting guys on base, I think it's going to stand that the guys who predominantly hit 4th and 5th, which should be Nathaniel Lowe and Adolis Garcia, will hit with guys on base more often. And when they do that, they will be more dangerous. Trickle-down effect, trickle-down economics, trickle-down baseball. It's just how it works. Don't ask me to explain economics, but on baseball, I think you get the picture. The other thing I wanted to talk about going into the season is the pitching rotation. And here's where I think the relative thinness of the rotation comes into play. The number 1 and technically the number 1 and number 2 pitchers, I think, in this rotation, if you go by experience and track record, are John Gray and Martin Perez. The numbers 3, 4, and 5 guys, Taylor Hearn, Dane Dunning, Spencer Howard, none of those guys has more than 144 innings in a professional, including the minor leagues, season. In addition, neither does A.J. Alexy, Glenn Otto, Jake Latz, Cole Winn, all of the guys that you would expect would be potential depth options or in-season call-ups if the Rangers run into trouble with their pitching rotation. And so where I think this comes into play is not only do the Rangers have to be very careful with innings and pitch counts at the beginning of the season simply because of the shortened spring training, they also have to be aware of this in terms of marshaling out and metering out innings for these guys over the course of the regular season. Because if they get off to a good start and you want to hang around in the playoffs, you're going in the playoff hunt, you're going to be faced with the idea of diminishing innings, fatiguing pitchers, the potential for injury catching up to you then. It's a complex situation that the Rangers are going to have to work through. I think they would like to have that problem to deal with come July and August. But for now, I think they've also got to make sure they are careful early on, and I think that's going to put a heavy burden on the bullpen. They'll have 10 relievers in the bullpen for the first month of the year, but after that, the roster size gets reduced from 28 to 26, which is going to have further impact on the bullpen. And this is the dynamic the Rangers are going to have to work with all year on their pitching staff, because I think everybody who has ever heard me talk has heard this winter the concerns about how thin the pitching staff still is. It's still the weakness of this team. At this point, the offense should be greatly improved. The pitching staff is still got some proving to do. Last thing before we go, before I went to Toronto, I stopped back in Dallas for one day for the food tasting at Globe Life Field with the lovely Sarah Blaskovich, our food writer extraordinaire. We tasted all the foods as we normally do. For me, the great news was that there were no gargantuan items added to the menu. I got to tell you, I've been kind of tired. I think that the boomstick craze kind of ran its course. The boomstick is still available at the ballpark, and it is still a mess. But in each successive year that you just did these huge, obnoxious piles of food, it was just a mashup of foods, and maybe it worked for Instagram. I don't know that it worked for anybody trying to share foods. Just not a great idea. So I'm glad to see that backed off. I am really glad to see that the item that was a fan suggestion for 2020, which really kind of got pulled out because of the pandemic, Brisket Egg Rolls are going to be back. I believe they're $11 for 2 egg rolls. All things considered, not terribly expensive. And look, you take egg roll, wrapper, and fry it, and I would eat basically anything in an egg roll: avocado, cabbage, black beans, whatever you want to put in an egg roll. It's usually pretty good. But brisket, quite good. You do that. You wrap it up in that little egg roll. It's a neat carrying case for the food. It doesn't get that messy. So you can enjoy the food and not look like George Costanza at the U.S. Open in an episode of Seinfeld, because my entire life comes back to Seinfeld references. So big ups on the brisket egg rolls at the ballpark. The other foods, a little bit hit and miss. I don't know why Delaware North insists on giving us wild game, but 2 years ago they were going to try and sell rattlesnake sausage at the ballpark. This year it's alligator corny dogs. And listen, I'm okay not eating reptiles as long as they will promise not to eat or poison me. That's pretty much my deal with the reptiles. I also feel this way about sharks. But it tasted like a corny dog with a little bit of kick, because it's kind of an andouille spice in there. So it had a little bit of a kick. It was a fine corny dog. Just, again, to me, you put that much batter on something, you put mustard, and it's in a sausage with spice, it's going to taste like whatever it's designed to taste like, which is, in this case, a corny dog. Mac and cheese nachos. This is a case, I feel like, of two great things that don't go so great together. Nacho cheese is wonderful. I think we'd all love to bathe in it until we've ever worked at a concession stand and sat there, watched it sitting there congealed up. But nachos on chips, a great idea, great invention. Mac and cheese, a great invention. But when the mac and cheese is kind of a creamy, a mild cheddar, and then you've got that spicy nacho cheese, the two cheeses compete with each other, and it's a horrible thing to have competing cheeses. So it didn't quite work for me. The thing that I did like, surprisingly enough, was the chicken fried brisket sandwich. I think it's a little bit bready because you've got thick Texas toast, breaded brisket that's thick and a little bit dry because it's going to be hard to keep that brisket moist. It was good. It's a little bit bready, so it's gonna sit in your tummy a little bit like a bomb. Cannot recommend those brisket egg rolls enough, though. I don't know why I'm pointing at you. It's a terrible habit, but I hope to see you all at the ballpark on Monday for the home opener and throughout that first homestand. And until we speak again when baseball season has officially started, so long, everybody.